Hello and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn. This time I'm going to be showing you how to make two different cage designs as modelled so ably here by Grandmama. Today's main materials are going to be recycled card from food packaging. This is an Easter egg box, and toothpicks. Nothing more complicated than that. For my rectangular cage, I have begun with a 1-inch strip of the card, which I've then cut down into approximately 3/4 inch pieces. I've done 3 for my top and I've done 4 for the bottom, although a couple of the ones for the bottom are a little bit bigger because I want to sort of make it look a bit rougher. Size depends on where you're going to put it, what you're going to use it for. I know where this is going to go, which is giving me the size that I need to do. I also know what's going to go in it. So these are going to be stuck together to make a thicker board, which will make at my top and bottom. Now I've cut some further pieces of the cardstock to make the ends of my cage, and they are 3/4 of an inch by 1/2 inch, and I've doubled them up again so that they're a bit stronger, and they're going to be stuck into place at the ends. Now I'm going to make for the door into the cage to be in the end, and I have, with that in mind, I have scratched into the card. Now I've scratched into all the card to give it a bit of a wood grain effect, because it does sort of add to the effect once I paint it and add washes and so forth. But on this I have actually put the wood grain going in opposite directions to sort of mimic the being a door, and I'm going to put some little hardware on it, just little bits, probably just of paper, to mimic the being hinges and a fasten. I have started putting the cage together by sticking the two ends onto the base, and what I've also done is I have also gone round the edge and I have used glue to fill the gaps when my layers are joined together. This, when I start painting, will actually cover up the fact that these are made from separate pieces to a degree. Now I'm going to start painting it, because obviously once I stick the bars in and I put the top piece on, I won't be able to get inside. So I'm going to start off painting and then we'll move on to the bars. The painting is finished. I started with my usual black base coat just because I like having that dark layer at the bottom. I then added a fairly light brown to the wood, and I've then overbrushed that with a little of a light grey colour, just to make the wood look weathered and worn. I've also done the bars. They've been painted with a metallic silver on top of the black, and then I've painted my little critter here. Now this was sold as being a mouse. I think you might actually be a bit on the big side for a 12th scale mouse, but I thought he could at least be a small rat. So I've painted him black, and I've given him his pinky coloured tail, so he's ready to go in the cage when it's put together. I have stuck the bars into place, and now before I put the final piece of the cage on, I need to fill it, and that means I've got to put my rat in, and also I've made some sort of strawy type stuff. I'm going to put some of this in the bottom just so that it actually looks a bit more thought about, and then I'm going to stick my little rat inside the cage. I'll then put the lid on, and I've got to finish off the door. Now I've left the bars probably a little bit far apart because rats can get through quite small spaces, but that's just so that you can actually see into it in this scale. I've added the straw. Now the straw I made from copier paper that I coloured with a alcohol ink marker, so it was a sort of yellowy, strawy kind of colour. And then I cut very, very fine pieces off the edge with my smaller scissors. I found this was the best way. When I did it with, tried doing it with a craft knife, it wasn't coming off smooth enough. But with the scissors, I could cut off the tiniest little slithers, which I then cut up and glued down. And I'm now going to add my little rat. Now if I get my tweezers, and I'm going to hold him by his tail. Not how you should hold a real rat. And I'm going to put some glue underneath him. And I'm going to put him there. Push him down into the cage. So as you can see, he's now in the cage and you can actually see him through the bars, just about. He's not going to be the most obvious piece in the room. He's not a centerpiece by any means, but he is there and I will know it. After gluing the lid on, I've added a little handle, which is just a piece of cardstock coloured with a silver marker. And then I've used some kitchen foil to make the fittings for the door. There's a little hinge and there's a little catch to keep the door in place. And there we have my little caged rat, which I'm quite impressed with how it's come out, and I'm looking forward to putting it in my project. For my second cage, I'm using a circle punch. This is a 1-inch circle punch, and I've punched some circles out of the same cardstock that I've been using throughout this video. It's just food packaging, nothing special. And these are going to form the top and bottom of my cage. So I'm going to begin by gluing these together. For this cage, I'm going to be using 24 gauge beading wire rather than the toothpicks, because I want thinner bars. What I've done before I start painting or anything like that, and now that the pieces are stuck together, I've actually marked out where all the bars will go by layering the pieces up and pushing holes through with my paper piercer. Obviously I'm going to paint this next, but I wanted to get these holes in at least as guide holes so I would know where I've got to match everything up. So painting next. I've painted my top and bottom again using a black undercoat, and then I've used a metallic silver top coat to give it a metal look. And with those painted, I'm going to start doing the bars, for which I'm going to use the beading wire, and I'm also going to be using my little ruler, some wire cutters and some jewellery making pliers. You might not need the jewellery making pliers, but I do find it handy to make sure that I get nice neat bends. I've started by cutting lengths of the beading wire that are a little bit over 1 inch, and I'm using my ruler and I'm putting one end on the inch line. I'm getting the jewellery pliers and I'm just turning it over. You can turn it over with your fingers, but it does just make life a little bit easier to get hold, because it's still, even though it's quite thick jewellery wire, it's still quite fine. And I'm being left with an L-shaped pin, and I'm going to repeat that for all of these pieces of wire before I start putting the bars in the cage. Now, I did think I was recording this, but unfortunately the camera wasn't running. I have put all of the little L-shaped pins that I made through the top piece of my cage, and I have fastened them in place using some UV resin. Now, you can use any glue that will stick metal. I just use the UV resin because I've got it and I don't use it, and I thought, well, I'm going to give it a go for this one. and it's actually worked quite well. And now what I've got to do is I've got to attach all of these into their little holes in the bottom and stick them in place so that I'll have an actual cage. In the end, I decided to go with fastening the wires around the outside of my base. I just decided that it made for a more interesting looking cage, and yeah, that's what I went with. I didn't want something perfect, I didn't want something that looked mass produced, and I like how it's come out. Although heaven only knows what you'd manage to keep in a cage like this. I have added a little hanging loop to the top, and I'm going to dull it down a bit, dull the resin down before it actually goes into the project. But I'm quite pleased with how this second cage has turned out. And here are my finished cages. My rat in a cage and my unoccupied, more of a bird cage sort of design. Just a different idea that I had. I hope you liked them and I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and until next time, bye.